Hello. We're talking a little bit about the color wheel and color theory today, and this is the color wheel we created in the watercolor painting class, the painting class. A few things. I did some work before I started the demo because basically it's wetting the paint and putting it on the page. I figured you guys could figure that out. And here's how I set it up. Here's how you want to set up your paper so you can kind of see all the relationships and everything. Name, color with the top, because that's what it is. And then all these shapes are important. So the circular shapes are your primary colors. That means you can't mix these. Primary because they're first. You got to start with these. And they make a perfectly equal-sided triangle on the color wheel. So I started by making this triangle, and then I drew my 3 circles at the corners. And I knew that those would be the primaries. Now, if I mix half of 2 primaries, I get what's called a secondary. And that's what the squares are. So each square is a secondary color that I get by mixing, in theory, equal amounts of 2 primaries. Now, look how much lighter the yellow is than the blue. So in theory, a perfect green is half yellow, half blue. Well, in life, this is so much lighter and this is darker that I'm going to need more yellow than blue to get a perfect green. So I always mix by starting with the lighter color and adding just a little bit of the darker color until I get the middle. Now, for these secondaries, they're actually in my palette, so I didn't have to mix them. But I just, add enough water to get a nice even color of each ones. But I'm remembering if I did, I could make all these colors simply with blue, red, and yellow because they're the primaries. So half of red and yellow gives me orange. Half blue, half red gives me purple. Half blue, half yellow gives me green. So there I have my secondaries. Again, perfectly equal-sided triangle will show me how they fit on the color wheel. Now these little triangles in between are called tertiary or intermediate colors. I prefer tertiary because it's fun to say in your stuffy art voice and it sounds much more exciting, but they're both interchangeable names. I don't know why it has 2, it just does. So just like to get the secondary, you use half and half of these. To get the tertiary, it's half and half of each of these. Half of this, half of this. So really, as you're mixing, what I'm going to do here in my little palette, I'm going to start with the lighter color. Here's my yellow. I'm going to add a little touch of green. And there I get my yellow-green. So I can fill that in right here. And I tend to mix these sort of like a little family. No, I do the greens close together. I do the blues close together, things like that. So now let's go over here. If I wanted to make this blue and green, they're pretty much the same value, so I don't have to worry too much about it. I'll take a little bit of green, I'll take a little bit of blue, a little more blue. I did put a drop of paint, or drop of color. Jeez, I can't talk. A drop of water in each of these. Come on, blue. There we go. Now it's looking blue-green. Just to soften them a little bit. Apparently my blue needed a little bit more. That's a little greeny. Let's get a little more blue in there. Come on. Let's see now. That's a little more blue-green. I like that better. So half of that one, and I used a nice thick line in between each one. Notice I'm very careful to clean my brush. I don't want green in my yellow-orange over here. So I'm not going to use this one. If ever your paints are dirty, let it dry. And then just add a little touch of water and you can clean them right out. Let's get a little touch. Oh, that's a lot. Oh, too much. Let's get a little more yellow back in there. That's a little better. That looks like a yellow-orange to me. There. So I can see, I should be able to see, looking at the 2 colors, if it's too close to one or the other, then I might need to add some of the other color. But I should be able to see that it's different, like it makes a step in between each one, but that it's in between now. So I got my red, I got my orange. I could keep mixing with that one, but I want it to be more pure because, it's a color wheel painting. So again, in theory, half and half of each one, but I'm filling in each one here. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm going to start talking about relationships between the colors while I'm filling in the rest. So I'm noticing the way things are laid out on the color wheel, there's always going to be, ooh, that's kind of dark. Let's get a little bit of red just on the corner of it. I should have started with the red this time. I'm talking, not paying attention. There we go. It's a nice red violet. All the colors, as they're next to each other, they tend to look similar, right? I see that they have this similarity, this relationship between the two. So I could pick a group of colors that are similar and say, I'm just gonna do like a warm color painting. I want all the colors in my painting to have this nice warm look. Well, what kind of colors are warm? Warm colors are like, think of fire. What do you think of? We think of reds and oranges and yellows. It's sort of our fire side. Over here, get it? Like fireside. Okay. So those colors would be the warm colors. These over here, considered cool colors. Let's just say I wanted a warm color landscape, for example. I would use these next to each other, and when they're next to each other, the fancy art term for that is analogous. I would be creating, whoops, what am I doing? I'm doing blue, green again. I'm not supposed to be. Analogous colors are the ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. So you could say to yourself like analogous, 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 and help yourself remember that really by just repeating them over and over so you remember. Because you're going to need to know all these terms in our painting class. I think that's a nice blue-violet. We'll paint that one in. So analogous colors are next to each other on the wheel. I'm going to draw that in a minute, write that down. And I can do that by, here, I might do this, warm. So I remember that these are the warm colors, and cool. So I remember that these are the cool colors. Now I'm gonna go, let's just say, something like this. Aww. So I remember this. These are analogous. And that means next to each other on the color wheel. I did some labeling down here so I could remember. The circles are the primary colors. Can't mix these, they're my starters. The squares are the secondary colors, equal, that means equal amounts, I'll use the symbol, make it quicker, of two primaries. The tertiary, or intermediate colors, are equal amounts of a primary and a secondary. Apparently I dribbled a little bit there with my water. And then a color scheme is a limited group of colors. Analogous are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And then anytime I have colors that make a triangle, that is a specific color scheme too, called a triadic color scheme. See, three, it's like tricycle, it all goes together. So triadic makes, I just say colors that make an equal-sided triangle on the color wheel. This is my triangle symbol. So I have analogous as a color scheme, triadic as a color scheme, and then I could say warm and cool like I mentioned here too, but that's like a warm and cool analogous color scheme. It's already the same. And then the other thing I can do is look at complementary color schemes. So like if I go like this, woo, and draw a line straight through, complementary with an E, complementary. A complementary color scheme is across the color wheel. Two colors across the color wheel. And the reason they're called complementary really is because they will always look brighter next to each other. Like think of Christmas, think of like bright, happy things. And it's usually, we think of them as a primary and a secondary, but you could do a complementary tertiary pair too. That works. So let's see, we got blue and orange are a complementary pair. Violet and yellow are a complementary pair. You can say purple, but stuffy out people like to say violet. So I say violet. And then red and green are a complementary pair directly across from each other. So if I were to go around and label all of these, I got my red, yellow, blue, those we know those, right? The questions sometimes tend to be, how do you write it out when it's a tertiary? Like we know these names, orange, these aren't new. But what about this? You always put the primary name first and then the secondary. So this one would be a red orange, for example. This one would be a yellow orange because they're the primary colors. They have to go first. They gotta be primary. Gotta be like that. This would be yellow green. We got ourselves a blue-green here. Maybe we should move that over a little bit. I'm gonna move my paints out of the way here. We have a blue-green. Da-da-da. And then go around and label them all like that. You can figure out how to label. But the end goal is that I've created a tool. So I look at this and I say, all right, I know I want to do cool colors, or I want to do this analogous color scheme, but I want to know like how things break down so I can be purposeful and actually like, you know, say I want to use these colors and not just, I don't know, let's just use red on that. Like, let's think about it and be, you know, intentional with the way we use our colors in our paintings. So there it is, color wheel and color theory for you. Thank you.